Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all so very much for making the time to join us for this very important conversation. My name is John Tate, and I manage strategic partnerships with Springfield Daily Citizen. I'm blessed and honored to work with what I believe are the best journalists in the city. We have a special relationship with the Community Foundation of the Ozarks to put on this event. These events don't happen by accident. They take a lot of work from a lot of talented people. One of those talented people I'd like to give a little bit of acknowledgement to is Erin Scott. Without Erin's contributions, we couldn't have made this possible. As a courtesy, we want to let you all know, whoever would like to be invited, after this event, our unofficial after-party event will be held at Vantage. And I have on very good authority that there might be a few buy one, get one drink tickets. But with that being said, we want to be thankful for Erin's great work, and great people are only made possible by great leaders, which is a perfect segue to the CEO of the CFO, Ms. Winter Kitty.
Thank you. Let me add my welcome as well, and thanks for coming on a beautiful Friday afternoon, right? This is not normal Ozarkian July weather right now. And let me start by welcoming you to the future home of Community Foundation of the Ozarks. You may have seen that in the Daily Citizen and other media outlets earlier in 2024 that we purchased 300 South Jefferson. And in a few months, we'll begin renovations of the 4th floor. And hopefully about a year from now, but don't hold me to that because construction is construction, right? J.E. Dunn, David, who's here, leading that project for us. We will move here. So we will just move 2 blocks farther into downtown, into the heart of downtown, and can't wait to see how that changes and increases the visibility of CFO even more than that. So just wanted to start with that. And then secondly, just to tell you why regionalism is important to Community Foundation of the Ozarks. We were started in 1973 in Springfield, for Springfield. But in just 20 years later, in 1993, we took on our first community affiliate in Nixa, and now have grown to serving all 62 counties south of the Missouri River, border to border, and have 55 affiliated community foundations in that service area. I didn't work here in 1993, but I do think, at least from what I've heard and understand the history, that we believed then and continue to believe now that what is good for the region is good for Springfield, and what is good for Springfield is good for the region. And there is a driving force that philanthropy should be at the table and is part of a coordinated economic and community development effort, that philanthropy has a place to play in that. So regionalism is baked into the very ethos of Community Foundation of the Ozarks, so we're thrilled to have this today. Each of these folks actually have a connection to Community Foundation, which is pretty fun to see a panel of friends get to talk about this. So enough for me. You'd like to hear the answers from them. But thanks for coming. We appreciate our partnership with the Springfield Daily Citizen and with many of you in the room as well. And I'm going to turn it over to President and CEO of the Daily Citizen, David Stoeffler.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? I'm David Stoeffler with the Daily Citizen, and we're going to get our panel started here shortly. I'm going to introduce the panelists. We have one who is probably just around the corner. Will be stepping in any second. Right at the moment, I'm ready to introduce him. But I'm going to start with our panelists here, Erin Danastasio, who is the Executive Director of the Hatch Foundation, which is a family foundation here in Springfield that is dedicated to nurturing a sense of community through innovative solutions that reflect our quality of life. And we're looking forward to hearing from all of our panelists here as we go. But I want to introduce all of you to them first, and then we'll get started with the questions. Dean Thompson is Executive Director of Regionalism and Economic Development for the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce. Dean has been on loan to the chamber from his job as Vice President, Chief Economic Development at the City Utilities. He's also a Brigadier General in the U.S. Army Reserves, so he's frequently globetrotting around the world in that role. David Cameron is the City Administrator for the City of Republic. It's a position he's held since 2016. Republic native, right? Miller. He's got more than 30 years of experience in local government roles, and he's a former chairman of the Springfield Regional Economic Partnership, and also serves on the board of the Ozarks Transportation Organization, so he has a lot of regional hats. Lisa Rau is Director of Communications and Public Information for the City of Branson. Many of you will remember her from her award-winning reporting days at KY3, and she also spent 30 years as Director of Publicity and Public Relations at Silver Dollar City, which I think is one of our area's premier attractions. So we're anxious to hear her perspective on things. And our last panelist, I was hoping he would just arrive right at the moment that I was ready to introduce him, is Clay Goddard. Clay is president of the Southwest region for Brightly and Burrell Behavioral Health. He came to that job about 2 years ago after a nearly 25-year career in public health, including serving as director of the Springfield Green County Health Department during the challenging era of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I think you know there are restrooms. They're on both sides here. Women's on this side, men's on this side. We have refreshments here, courtesy of CFO. Don't hesitate to get up while we're doing the panel and grab yourself a refill. What we really want to talk about here is something that I think everybody in this room wants, is for this area to be an attractive and welcoming place, the kind of place where we can raise our families and enjoy our lives. It's the kind of place that we're proud to call home. Our panel is going to explore this topic of regionalism and get into the whys and hows and some of the challenges that lie ahead. We expect the panel to go about an hour, and then we will take questions from the audience and have a nice give and take, and wrap up certainly by 4 o'clock. And hopefully, if you can adjourn over to Vantage with us and keep the conversation going. So with that said, I'm going to grab my perch here and start with the first question. So, Erin, we're going to start with you. And I'd like to have you talk a little bit about what brought this idea of regionalism to the forefront, and why do you believe it's important to take these steps to enhance the quality of life here?
Happy to talk about that. It's funny. The topic of regionalism really wasn't something that I think I had even considered prior to 2 years ago. But in September of 2022, I went on a community leadership visit, which is a group where the chamber puts together a visit each year, an annual trip where they visit different communities that are similar to Springfield, yet different for a variety of reasons. But there are about 85 individuals that go on that trip. And I was excited to go to Northwest Arkansas that year because they have really transformed recently, in my opinion. When I was growing up, Arkansas was not a destination. It was not really a place that people would say, okay, yeah, let's go take a family trip there. I want to go see what they have going on. But now it very much so is. They have just a plethora of activities there, and they have just truly transformed who they are. Northwest Arkansas has. And so when we went on that trip, I guess I was just really surprised by a group that we got to talk to. It was the Northwest Arkansas Council, and learning about their efforts and what they've been able to do. It's a group that was put together a little over 30 years ago. It was really just 3 individuals that came together. At the time, it was Walmart and J.B. Hunt and Tyson who came together, and they said, for us to be able to keep our businesses here in Northwest Arkansas, we have to make some changes. And it was surprising to be able to hear within 10 years they had an airport, and they were able to work on highway expansions and bringing clean water to rural areas and shit like that. Now, fast forward 30 years, and they touch, in my opinion, it seems like just about everything there in their community. They are focused on healthcare initiatives. They have housing markets. They're working on education, and the list literally just goes on and on. So I was surprised to be able to understand or learn, I guess, really about how four similarly sized cities came together and really partnered with each other. They were collaborating, they were working together to support each other, but then also to, realizing that, as we said earlier, a win for Springfield in our situation is a win for our region, and vice versa. And they, in my opinion, they really just kind of stepped up to the game and said, this is what we need to do, and how we can support each other and help our region as a whole truly thrive. So when we think about, you mentioned quality of life, I believe. When I think about quality of life, a lot of the things that they have focused on really feed into that. Why are the reasons that I want to live in Springfield when I think about it here at home base? It's a lot of things that quality of life is really is what the purpose of why you want to live where you want to live. And I think that a lot of the attributes that we have here in Springfield, if we continue to focus on those and really highlight those to the forefront for everybody to be able to experience and understand what we have here, that's what their regional group has focused on. And that's really important for us to be able to focus on those things and to be able to say, yes, those are reasons that I want to live here, and likely our neighbors as well, but then also when businesses are wanting to advertise Springfield or our entire region, what are the reasons that people want to come here, and we're going to draw the right individual here to stay in our region.
So you were on the trip that was organized by the Chamber of Commerce. It's an annual trip. Is this the first one you've been on? Or?
No, it was my second. So yeah.
And I know at the conclusion of those meetings, there's always a huddle, if you will, and a session where the participants talk about what they learned, what was the takeaways from that session. And I'm assuming, I wasn't there, but I'm assuming one of the takeaways was, wish we could do something like that.
It seems like you were there, actually.
I have sources.
Yes, I recall that conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. So why is that? Why did that become a priority for Hatch?
Yeah, it became a priority for us because the mission of the Hatch Foundation is to build a better sense of community, and I think that focusing on quality of life, quality of place, those are how we do that. And it is funny when we sat down for kind of a debriefing afterwards. Regionalism was the one topic that everybody came back to. Everybody's really excited about it, and I think what's interesting is when you have that many leaders from the community, both public and private sector leaders in that group, it was interesting to hear everybody truly coming together and saying, yes, this is what we need to do, this is what we need to focus on. And so from my perspective, or from the perspective of the Hatch Foundation, I should say, that's how we build up our community, and that's how we continue to strengthen our community. That's how we, personally, I want my children to stay here in Springfield and or in this region as a whole, and if we can help our region thrive, that's what it's going to take.
So you, in the rest of your board from the Hatch, decided you wanted to be a catalyst, if you will, for these conversations.
Yeah, so after the visit, there was a small group of us, 10, 12 of us probably, that met every few weeks, just kind of continuing this conversation of, okay, what could that mean for Springfield? And as we all know, when you get back to reality and to your day jobs, some of those conversations end up kind of getting pushed aside, if you will. So it was actually Ryan Fogel who reached out to me, and we started talking about it. Ryan was also on that trip, and I think the two of us were still continuing to be very energized by that conversation. And so we met and talked about how could our two foundations kind of, I guess, be the convener for this conversation, and who needs to be at the table. And so we ended up inviting a group of individuals, a large group of individuals, to the table to really initially just see, is there excitement for regionalism, and is it something that we should pursue? And I think for us, representing two foundations, we didn't have an agenda we were trying to push. It wasn't, there wasn't a specific thing that we were going for. It was just trying to see, is it something that the community as a whole wants? So again, we number of individuals throughout the region to the table. And it was interesting because I think it was at that first meeting that we heard, we've tried regionalism before, but we didn't invite the private sector to the table, and it failed. And so I think that that was one of the key things that we kept hearing from Northwest Arkansas, and something that we really took to heart and thought was really important. So we ended up hiring Ted Abernathy from economic leadership to be able to come to really just be the individual to lead the conversations. He's an expert in this field, and so we brought him in and ended up inviting a number of other individuals actually to the next meeting. And we continue to meet about every other month for a little less than probably 8 months, probably. And Ted ended up in January setting out or putting up his report of what his recommendations were to be able to push forward and who we thought we should be. But during those conversations, we were talking to, again, public and private sector, trying to understand what would this organization focus on. It's interesting with Northwest Arkansas, again, they needed an airport to be able to keep those businesses there. They were not Fortune 500 companies yet, but they were growing, and to be able to keep those businesses, that was one of the main things that they needed. And when we look at our region, we're fortunate. We have airports, we have clean water, we have highways, we have a lot of these things that, when I look at Northwest Arkansas, those were kind of the big fires that they needed to put out. So we were having conversations of, what are our fires, or do we have one? And also trying to identify what should the region be, and there are just so many questions that obviously came about. But as I mentioned, in January, Ted put out his report, and we've been running with that ever since.
So one of the lead firefighters sitting next to you here, Dean, you were kind of at the nexus of a lot of this from your role first in city utilities. You were also on the CFO board. I don't know if you were president yet, or when these conversations started, but and then obviously being on loan to the chamber while all of this was going on. So talk to us a little bit about lore. What is it? What's Leader for Ozarks Region involvement, and how is that a solution to this challenge? And what so far has been the reaction from the business community?
Yeah. So this is all your name. With any great military story, you start off, so there it was. So there it was, a little background. So there it was. We were finishing up the firing project, the city utilities, and all this with Erin just brought up was taking place. And Gary Gibson came and asked me about the chamber and working on economic development, but then also about some of the regional discussions. And we've been doing regionalism more with economic development for the past 25 years. So that has been really neat to see how that's grown from not having practitioners in the economic development realm to now showing Christian County, for our Teeny County partnership. Andre's here from Showing Christian County. We have now about 7 economic development organizations that are doing that in the region. And so this is different in that the evolution, I'd say, of regionalism and more, it's not just about economic development. And here's the one thing that's striking to me is that we all get wrapped around the axle on limits, city limits, imaginary lines on a map that do matter for taxing. They do matter for different things, whether it's fire protection, law enforcement, all those things. So I don't want to say they don't matter, but what doesn't matter to talent are those lines. And that's what Northwest Arkansas, I think, was the biggest takeaway, is that if you want talent to come to the area and be in the area, then it's the vibe, it's the feeling, it's the quality of life. When I was in Republic, one of the hardest things to hear was, I didn't really move to Republic for Republic, I moved to the school district. I just happened to choose inside the city of Branson. So it was important to me, but I was more concerned about the school education that my kids are in. So there's some things like that. So I would put this lens on and looking at more is how do we help with some of the gaps that I see in the region. So for example, if you're talking about labor sheds to me are more important than city limits, because that's where the people are. if you look at statistic right now, the city of Springfield is now a net importer of jobs. So about 49% of the jobs in Springfield are filled by people that live in Springfield, but 51% are coming from outside the city of Springfield. And they're living, take it an hour away. Take any city and you look at their labor shed, it's going to be somewhere around an hour away that you can look at the limits. And we're looking at that and getting into more of the data, so the chamber's able to help with that through programs that we have that can really define the labor shed. So where do the people live? And what are the amenities that they're needing? And so to me, that's a bigger discussion on if you're looking at economic development, labor shed, things like that cross boundaries. And when you get into that discussion, though, it's more difficult because if you're representing a municipality, you can be all in on regionalism. But at the end of the day, you got to take care of what's inside your city limits. And so there's some of the struggle that you're always going to have with regionalism. How does it benefit me? I understand how it benefits to some degree, but at the end of the day, I still have these constituents that I have to answer to. So coming to the thought of war in Northwest Arkansas is business interests span boundaries. So if I'm a business, I'm looking at where am I getting my labor from? And we have businesses, my discussions with CEOs, we have businesses right now that they may get an employee that's all excited about, hey, I want to come to Springfield and work here. But the spouse looks at it, yeah, I don't know that much about it. Let's pass. So there's effort on both parts. We're losing some jobs or some talent because of that. And then some people want to remote work because they just don't know. So there's things, and if you look at Northwest Arkansas, things that they have in the vibe, you have people moving to Northwest Arkansas because of the vibe without a job. They want to be a part of something, and they feel that vibe and they move there. Now that's crazy to me. That's not how it's not how I roll, but I see it, I understand it. And that's what we have to adjust to and understand that. It's not about the city of Springfield, it's not about the public, it's not about Branson. We have a talent pool, we have a great story to tell, but I don't know if we're telling that appropriately internally with all of our family, so to speak, or externally to the degree that we can be. And I'm looking at it from a global competition standpoint. Some people are thinking about, hey, we're competing with the public, and they say, well, no, we're not. We're competing with jobs across the nation and globally. And so I think that's the lens that we need to be looking at it. And the most significant part of it is when you're working with the CEOs, they all have those interests throughout the region, and they're able to turn on a dime. So first I should have opened up with thanks to the Hatch team and CFO, as it became immediately apparent when we were going through forming the idea, they can turn on a dime. And my time in government is not a criticism, but we have checks and balances in government for a reason. And they can't turn on a dime like the private sector can. So if you have a true partnership, a true public-private partnership, you need to have the public side, you need to have the private. But what I think Laura's also done is started to bring philanthropy more into the discussion of the next. And that's because Erin's conversations, Brian has done it, Wyndham has done it. But I see all of this starting to come together with Laura, where maybe at the front of the conversation, how can philanthropy be involved? How can the private sector be involved? So we have a lot of good stuff going on in the region and a lot of history with it. But I think to take it to the next level, the concept of Laura bringing CEOs together, working with the public sector, and working on these gaps that in some cases entities cannot justify going into an unincorporated area and doing a study on the cable housing. Who's going to do that? Well, you got to get people in the region together. You got to have an organization that can say, hey, I have an interest in that, and let's take that along with its branding, have different discussions of what that can look like. So the reception from the CEOs is very positive. What's interesting is nobody just hung up the phone. Erin's been instrumental, Winter, others in the group. I see throughout the room of making these connections and having those conversations. So number one, we were able to get in through the door and have a conversation. And I thought, well, see how much time we're willing to get. Those conversations have lasted from an hour to 2 hours with CEOs, which I'm very, very fortunate and blessed that happened. And they start talking about their journey and their view of, hey, why do we stay? Why do we stay in the Ozarks? Why have we invested our business here? What do we see in the future that get excited about it? And there's those moments like, okay, this has an opportunity for something transformational. So the reception's been very positive. We're trying to be very purposeful in how we bring that group together and have the very first announcement of who's there. We have 13 leaders at the table right now from different sectors. In the very first meeting last month, I think, of all the CEOs, I thought went really well, talking about the higher level strategic things of how does this work? And so in time, I think, is the most precious commodity that these individuals have. And for them to show that kind of interest and financially back it up, it's been very well received. So I'm very excited because I think we're taking our regional efforts to the next level. And I think for the first time, we really have all the people at the table in different areas that can just really, Northwest Arkansas is great, but I think we can much better.
And Dean, as Erin referenced, the desire to have the private sector involved. So right now, LORE is focusing on this membership being the private sector, not the public sector. Is that correct?
That's correct. And part of that is, if you look at the public sector, Jason Ray's here, you have council government, you have other entities. Now, to start with that, we don't want to do the big start with that. There's other entities in the area, whether it's economic development organizations or the council of government, where you have a forum for the elected officials to come together, bring those resources and concerns. And again, going back to being nimble, it's not that we don't want to partner with the public sector. By no means is that the case. But to remain nimble in the models that we looked at, not just Northwest Arkansas, but in 2 or 3 different locations throughout the United States, you have to have the right people at the table. You have to be nimble. One of them, which we discussed, they actually initially started with the public sector at the table, and after was about 10 years in, they decided to exclude them. I thought, oh my goodness, can you imagine? If you're a partnership for 10 years and they say, hey, this just isn't working the way we thought. And so the public sector was taken part out of the membership. So we're trying to use lessons learned from other communities. It's not that this is doing anything without the public sector, but it's having a group of CEOs, and that's the other mission. The CEOs are direct with resources in the companies. So back to Hatch and CFO, when resources were needed to work this, they could immediately respond. And that's just not always the capability of the public sector. So that's what I'm excited about it is there's things that the public sector is doing that's fantastic, but see a purpose and a gap that we're working with.
And you're getting the decision makers are at the table. That's one of the key things that you're really focusing on.
Yeah, and three-year commitment. CEOs have to be involved, but they also have to commit a +1, which should be a VP level, to help with some of the day-to-day grind, so to speak, of how do you take those strategic initiatives and then actually keep the ball rolling.
Thank you. As you can see, Clay has joined us after a series of meetings today, and the last one ran over. But we're just getting started. We'll come around to you after a minute here. So, David, you want to talk a little bit about, from your perspective, from the City of Republic, your community is one of the fastest growing cities in the area. Population is expected to double between 2020 and 2040. And I'm just kind of curious about, kind of from your perspective, the recent additions of things like the Amazon distribution center, the Convoy Hope distribution center. Give us your perspective on how regional development benefits the whole area, including the city of Springfield, when you consider developments like that.
Sure. Well, it's great to be here. I appreciate the time. But I do also want to thank Erin for answering that question, because that trip, I think it gets lost from that trip from Northwest Arkansas, was I think we met 4 days after we got back. And it was at her office, her husband, and everybody was sitting there going, what do we need to do to be forward thinkers? And we're like, we need the private side to be involved, because if you get government involved, it's too bureaucratic and it takes way too long. And so finding the private side to step up, we wouldn't be sitting here today without it. So, but I'm a big fan of regionalism. Grew up in Southwest Missouri, but I lived in Northwest Arkansas. I was a city administrator for 16 years. So watching and working in that network and seeing how what happened in South Springfield, which is where I was at, was beneficial to Fayetteville, Rogers and Springfield, Bentonville, but also how they won and benefited our community. And so whenever I got to Republic, that was one of our big values that we established, that the R in Republic stands for regionalism. We're going to be a regional partner. And so that doesn't mean they're, like Dean said, there are dividing lines. And so, but Amazon didn't choose Republic. They picked a geographic location in this region. They didn't say where's the boundary of that is. They said this is when you got, Republic is sitting in a powder keg. And I think sometimes that gets lost because there's an airport 6 miles away. You got I-44, Dallas, Chicago, and then you got I-49 to Little Rock opened up, rail. And so James River, there is, and then utilities. So you got CU, you got fiber. We're sitting in like one of the 5 locations in a 5-state area that have those type of resources adjacent to it. And so for us, Amazon, I would say that even I think about 20% of those employees that work at Amazon actually live in the Republic. The rest of them are living and working and playing in and around our region. And so at the same time, if you take what happens in that facility, so you had 1,800 jobs, what they say the dollar turned over 7 times. Those 1,800 jobs is turning over in the local economy, not just in the Republic. So that was a huge win for the region from the standpoint of what that's going to do for our local economy to keep, number one, those bringing jobs in, but at the same time, it's putting the local dollar and moving it around in all the communities. And so we all win from that. What's difficult though is when the discussion went on after Amazon, it's like, wow, what did Republic have to do? It's like, well, we're seeing this opportunity, but you win too. But a lot of them have to go back to, as Dean's point is, to their local stakeholders and say, hey, you need to go do what Republic's doing. Well, that's silly. I'm not going to try to do what Ozarks is doing with Finley Farms. And so Republic has a railroad running right smack dab through the middle. I'm not sure how to polish that any better. But if we can put water around it, I'm sure it would, make a huge difference. But I mean, I love going to Finley Farms. I was in Paynes Valley last week, but when we have got to capitalize on this as a region, we have so much there. We're out there asking people, where are you from? They're from San Francisco, Chicago. We're like, my gosh, there's just a ton of wealth that's coming into our region. We've got a great place to live, work, and play. And I just wanted it from a regional perspective when it comes to jobs. It's like we're sitting on an opportunity to benefit the whole region. And then you go to Convoy Pope, that's a different story. So Convoy was actually looking for where their global headquarters was going to be. And Southwest Missouri was not just the only option. I'm not sure how many people knew that. But whenever they came to Republic, I was like, there's no way on this planet that we're not going to offer an opportunity to make sure that it's at stake in our region. So I don't care when someone says, well, actually, aren't they in Republic now? They say they're from Springfield. I don't care, right? They're still in Southwest Missouri, and they still represent an incredible organization. If you go to that facility, you walk in it. I'm not proud of this necessarily in Republic. I'm like, I'm proud of this asset we got in our own backyard. It says we're pretty good at what we do. And so seeing all those efforts together, land in Republic, yes, it draws attention to it, but that's not the only reason why Republic's growing. There was a lot of pre-planning and regionalism that was taking place well in advance to set the infrastructure in place. All we did is we just removed the bureaucracy from it and made it so simple and user-friendly to come in and say, because that's one thing about regionalism. You can't say we want you in the region and then make it difficult for them to come in, right? So you've got to say, hey, the welcome mat's open. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in fiber, water, sewer, air to create these opportunities. We got to make it easy for them to get a permit to do business in our region. So I think that what we see is we're stewards over land. We're Southwest Missouri, but it just happens to be in the Republic. And I think I'm a little bit passionate about it because I get tired of watching the silos as they function. Because I'm with that, and I'll say this about Jason Ray and his team, and what I say about the OTO. We've had regionalism, and there are groups that do it extremely well. But my concern is what's keeping us from getting those larger jobs that want to be in our area that local governments are not really good for fixing collectively. That's why the Northwest Arkansas County was because it was no disrespect to those cities, but who's going to get that airport? I mean, we believe that, granted, in Southwest Missouri, they were able to get their airport. Northwest Arkansas, the politics and bureaucracy of the local, cities were bureaucracy a little bit too much. But it just kind of got in the way, and I just learned how if you had an organization of itself and what we could have, it could actually lead to another group behind it that helps lead economic development. And I need more people and resources on the private side that want to see that happen. And so that's why I'm a huge advocate to see things like crime, housing, childcare, that somebody's addressing those issues, because everybody's going to look at government and say, fix this problem. And I want what the private sector says about, is this problem actually affecting your ability to do business in our region? And if so, how can we collectively work on it? That, like Dean said, if we had not used the Hatch Foundation and CFO, if you'd let the city have to go out and hire Ted Abernathy, it'd taken 3 written quotes. It'd taken 6 months, so private money can move faster to secure those assets. And so that's what regionalism does. It allows us to be more nimble and move with the business community at the speed that they're moving. And so I like to believe we do that well in the public.
And so when you think about the discussion of lore and what it is aiming to do, one of the points being made is that it's not just going to be about development. That's not just about trying to draw economic development. It's about all of the other things around it. That complements what you're saying. That's a challenge for Republic.
Absolutely, because if a firefighter and a teacher can't afford to live in your community, somebody's going to be working on ways that we have affordable housing for people. I'm going to say I'm an economic development, I'm an infrastructure, organizational management guru. That's my background. Housing needs, for what that looks like, is not a skill set that I'm going to claim is in my wheelhouse. But there are groups with lore that could be addressing how to address the child care deficit. How are we going to make it where the worker wants to stay here because we have those resources for people? Now, those are issues that I have no skill set in whatsoever, but you can't keep saying, hey, government, fix it, when there's a private side that's affecting the private side. So if you've got the private folks involved, that's why I don't want to have a seat at that table, because once you introduce me into that room, we're going to help influence and drive it. But I don't believe the private sector or public sector belongs in there from that standpoint, because they already have representation, like Dean said. But the business community knows what's best for thriving their own business. Don't let government mess that up. And so I'm a big fan of letting that group, be it branding, be it, like I said, childcare, be it housing, they're more qualified and equipped. And I'll say another one, a big one, that's on that thing that those that have never seen Ted Abernathy's drawing will say, if you're going to look for a home, there's a query you can put in on a 4-bedroom house, 3-bathroom. And so that's all it shows you. Well, when these site selectors, these large companies are looking for where they want to go in the United States, one of the things, there is a line, and there's a certain crime rate above it, we get kicked out. So I think that's an issue that we have to talk about with this group of how we can help cities and communities become safer, where people want to come and live in safety. And so I think those are issues that those groups will have to tackle, and they're hard issues, but it could be the private sector with the public sector in those forums.
Ultimately, you report to a group of elected officials who are concerned about where those lines are. So how do you help your bosses understand the importance of plugging into this regionalism conversation?
It's a great question. So Dean and I were talking about a little bit this before the discussion, but I feel like part of my job is not just to lead the team of troops that I have. My job is to lead the elected body, because these are people that don't see it every day. This is not their day job. I'm a person that's been educated in that particular area, and so my job is to help lead them and provide those answers as well. So for myself, what we did in Republic, like I said, we established a missions document, and in that mission it said we will be regional. But I had them ratify the document. So they voted upon that language inside that. So they said, we're bought into being a regional partner. So when I-44 got $100 million, Republic is celebrating $100 million, but it's not going to improve one pothole in the city. Our mindset's not thinking about just the city pothole. It's thinking about, look at what I-44 is going to do for the entire region. We're moving commerce through here, and our commuters and our workforce. But that's an education that starts with the leadership of the people that are hired to do those jobs. I feel like it's my obligation, and even as a leader, like why I'm over here in Springfield today, or why I was in Erin's office that day on a community leadership visit for Springfield, Because I got to demonstrate to my own organization that it's worth my time and your time for me to be engaged in Springfield activities. Because what sets us much different apart from Northwest Arkansas, I'll say that Springfield is the catalyst. There was no catalyst city in Northwest Arkansas. We all collectively came together. Springfield is a catalyst city that we go as it goes. And so it's important that we talk, we say that. It's important that we share that. And so in my messaging, it has to be said that. So when I'm in Springfield or at the Capitol, there's times I'm advocating for Cox Hill. There's times I'm advocating for City of Springfield. Maybe not Senate Bill 979. That's my plug. But anyway, but see, but that's where I would say regionalism would have worked a little bit better if we were working collectively on it. And so I will get there. I should.
I'll let you on the hook.
Thank you.
Move on.
Vance is here somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah. Lisa, you've obviously devoted a substantial part of your adult life to helping Branson be a regional draw, a national draw as a destination for many people who come to our area. But it's also it's our backyard playground for all of those of us who live in the Springfield area for entertainment, hospitality, etc. So talk about kind of your perspective on this discussion and this idea of a unified vision for people who are coming to this area, a unified vision, if you will, for branding the area.
Okay. Thank you, David. And I have to say, I have so much to say before you guys have been talking about it. And I also want to say, I'm so glad to see old friends, people I haven't seen in years. It's just great to be here today. So thank you for asking me. I'm a little bit of an odd man out in that my realm is marketing, right? But regionalism and marketing certainly go hand in hand. And is there opportunity for us to work together? There's no question. Have we done some things? Yes. But have we done a lot of things and big vision things? Not yet, but it's a new day at City Hall in Branson. Let me tell you that. We'll talk more about that, okay? But do you guys realize that 20% of Missouri travelers come to Branson region? 20%. And travelers to Missouri spend $1 billion a month in Missouri. So there is an awful lot of opportunity because the number one being St. Louis, another number two, Kansas City, kind of vying back and forth. And guess who's in third? The three top, the big boys, Branson, right? Well, St. Louis, Kansas City have to come right through here. And you guys with Route 66 coming up, or should I say Route 66? In the north, we'd say Route, you said Route. Okay, so but regionalism in marketing is nothing new to Branson. In fact, in my tenure alone, after leaving KY3 and going to work for Mr. Peter Hershen, he had already established the Ozark Marketing Council. And that council was designed to bring Stone and Taney County together. And right there was regionalism, right? And then we called him the grandfather of Christmas. Mr. Hershen would take many of us on an airplane or drive to Wheeling, West Virginia to show us what lights could do. And look at Christmas now. Ozark just announcing another part of Christmas. Silver Dollar City owning Christmas. All kinds of Christmas shows, all the things that we can do with Christmas. And therein is another opportunity. So those are examples of regionalism. Since then, Branson at 12,000+ people, right? But how many people do we host? How many of you have been to Branson? Okay. 10.3 million tourists. So we're running a city, right, that has to think about infrastructure, workforce, fiber, well, not us in fiber, but Taney County and Stone County, all of those things, the affordable housing, all of that. But let's stay on marketing, because guess what the number one market is to Branson? You guys, the upwards of 500,000 people from right here in the Springfield DMA, basically the television viewing markets, right? There are 500,000 people coming to Branson annually from this area, another 75,000 from Joplin. So, Southwest Missouri, hear a lot of talk about Northwest Arkansas. I'm one of those people who like its vibe. I'm a Bentonville lover. But, there's an awful lot of opportunity for all of us to work together. And what we are able to do in Branson by these decades of building these relationships is we have a tax called the Tourism Community Enhancement District. It raises $11 million in taxes that we use solely for marketing, and that is a Stone, Taney County, Indian Point collaboration. And it's pretty heavy to be on the board because that's a lot of money. But, and then we also have the City of Branson, the tourist tax in the City of Branson, another good deal for us because of the approximate 18+ million raised, 75% goes to infrastructure and 4+ million goes back into marketing. So we're using $15 million to market Branson and we still can't touch it, right? I mean, there's still an awful lot of places where we have opportunity as a region to grow. And with the efforts that we do, you look at St. Louis being right behind Springfield at 230,000 people, right? Kansas City, 180,000 people coming to Branson. Guys, there are a lot more people living in those cities than those numbers. So think, if we could continue to grow and brand together. And so you say, well, you know, how do we do that, right? What are some ideas? Well, you know, look at right there with families. Number one attraction, what is it? Bass Pro Shops, retail store in Springfield, number one attraction in Missouri. Think about things like sports tourism, quite the catchphrase now, right? Well, we just completed a several $1 million turf project. That turf project is expected to double our tournaments. We've already welcomed 50,000 players this spring. That's kids with parents, brothers, sisters, family, creating this absolute economic engine, impact engine. And that can grow. You guys in Springfield area, lots of, you know, in some of the places between here and there, growing sports tourism is a wonderful way for families to come and extend their vacations. Another opportunity, hiking, biking trails, right? You guys own it, Springfield and Northwest Arkansas. But we're trying. We have 18 trails in 10 locations with the City of Branson, but we have our meetings trying to grow those trails. How can we get from here to Ozarks, to Finland, down to Branson? Is it possible? Have we even talked about it, right? These are things that we will see grow on the horizon. The other thing that's very, very important to all of us is the Springfield Branson National Airport. So recent research from H2R Marketing, which is Jerry Henry, very credible research, says that of those he surveys, always a big enough pool, that 52% of the national travelers haven't even heard of Branson. So think about that, what we could do to grow the traffic into our beautiful, wonderful, spoiled, rotten, right, airport. Another thing, the convention centers, right? Our convention center is right now studying a feasibility study of how to grow. We are turning away groups. We operate at about 60%. The industry standard is 65% full because you have to have those changeover periods. But at the same time, we're turning people away because we don't have big enough facilities. We don't have enough weekends. So right there, you know, with 250,000 people coming in now to the convention center in Branson, which we are now branding tightly with the City of Branson. A lot of people would think it was associated right with the Hilton, right? Well, it's actually the City of Branson's convention center. And then there's all the software stuff for us to think about. Christmas, we talked about Christmas, and marketing, promotions. You know, we've done some things with Springfield. I saw Tracy here. The Springfield CVB, that Tracy headed this project up with Bass Pro and Johnny Morris and Big Cedar and Silver Dollar City and the Branson CVB to go into markets and do things like what billboards and marketing efforts. From a public relations standpoint, for 20 years, we've been doing press fans that include national press are not going to just come for one thing, right? They want to know if I'm going to be writing to international and national audiences, what all do you have, right? So the press fans alone are a great opportunity to get that earned media, that third-party endorsement. And we have worked with the CBB again on those kind of efforts. So there's an awful lot that we can do if we get the right players in the room. And I'm not going to mess up with my second question that talks more about the city, but we've got City Hall in Branson, Missouri is on fire right now, okay? I'm going to leave it at that.
Afraid we're gonna have to call up the reporters, so talk a little bit more about from a city perspective. I mean, obviously you have the great depth of knowledge on the marketing side, but now you're trying to pay attention to more of the city issues. So issues like workforce attraction also have all these other spillover issues, housing, streets, transportation, et cetera. So how do you address those issues in the context of this, and how to work better how can the city of Branson work better with places like the City of Republic or the City of Springfield?
Okay, well, first of all, getting a new job at 61 years old, let me tell you, this is keeping me young, all right? So if I have to stop talking, just say, all right? Nudge me. Because I have a lot to say, because it's an awful lot of fun what we're doing right now. I never thought I would leave Silver Dollar City, but I decided to visit with a woman named Kathy Stoeffler, who had just been brought in under really adverse, kind of not very nice situation, to bring her in to serve as the new city administrator. Kathy was overseeing the EPA under Donald Trump, and she oversaw the 5 Great Lakes and 7, 5 Great Lakes, I'm from Michigan, I should know that, 7 states, all adjacent with the Great Lakes for the EPA. She also was a Wisconsin state senator, and she ran the Wisconsin DNR. She knows what she's doing, and she is dynamite. I met that woman, and I thought, you know what? It's time right now, you know her? It's time right now to say, go serve Branson. Make sure this one day, the legacy that you've been helping to build for more than 3 decades, continues on a great track. And so right now, I will tell you, there is so much in the works. But first and foremost, let me rattle off a couple of things that have been accomplished under the leadership of this new administration. And guys, I'm new to it. I keep calling them alderman council and really doing stuff. It's like municipal government, But we completed a fire station that had been on the books for 20 years. And we completed are completing the design now of our police department. We bought an abandoned theater. It was Ray Stevens' White House Theater, and it is beautifully located up on a hill in the center of Branson with ingress and egress from many directions. And it will allow our police department, 60 strong and fully staffed with officers, almost unheard of, to have the room they need to stretch out, evidence areas they need, the training areas. It's funny when a cop is talking about, well, we need weightlifting, but they do need that stuff, right? We need it because we eat too much. They need it because they got to be strong. So our police officers are going to absolutely continue to be very happy. And yes, they're wearing cowboy hats. And
so, Lisa, I know it's dangerous asking a public relations person to be on a panel.
Oh,
I know you want to brag about Branson, but talk about how this relates.
Okay, so all of this, all right, I'm telling you the good stuff we've done, right? Okay, but there's stuff we haven't done. And that is right up the same line that these guys are talking about. Housing, we don't have affordable housing, and we don't have the right economic development incentives in place yet. And Kathy and team are working on those things. The workforce, if we didn't have the communities north of us, we would be in great big trouble, right? Jonas Argus, who you guys would know from Cheney County Partnership, who's done a wonderful job at building things like the J1 and the Bridge America. He says that there is a study that said 96% of Branson Cox medical centers our residents outside of Branson. So we have issues that we have to work with. And we also are needing all of our codes, all of our ordinances, all of that, along with the incentives for developers to be upgraded. And that is exactly what we're doing. And so I bring this excitement to say, you know, we've listened, Branson's kind of been a little bit of an outsider because there hasn't been the energy and the real will to see that big picture of how important regionalism of economic development is for Branson to Springfield. So with that said, hold on, because I'm telling you, Kelly Stubbs going to be, and she loves this guy. I don't know what you did, but she's like, wait, he's on the panel? But we're going to have a lot happening. Sorry, David.
I knew you were excited about it, so I appreciate it. We were joined here in the beginning of the conversation here by Clay Goddard, the president of the Southwest Region for Rural Behavioral Health at Brightly. And Clay, I'm just wondering if you would talk a little bit about, you're providing a critical service throughout Southwest Missouri, so not just in Springfield. And as a service provider and regional employer, what do you see as key challenges in workforce attraction and enhancing the quality of life here?
Well, first, I apologize for being late. Second, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have that kind of image. You're working none of us, so that's just up to follow up. I am so grateful to have see this conversation taking place. We first started talking when I was in my role in public health department about regional approaches, probably 10 years ago, because we recognize that the lines on the map are just that. They're invisible strictures that we put in place, and they're important for a variety of reasons. Governance, zoning, so you can elect officials, those sorts of things. But really, when it comes to the economy, or in our case, we're more interested in community disease control. An E. coli outbreak doesn't care about the line on the map that says this is where Springfield ends and the public begins, for example. So I think that we've had some good examples of regional approaches. Obviously, OTO, I think they covered that. But I think we have a compelling story as a region. And that's going to be an increasingly more important story to tell as we're continuing to try to recruit and retain employees, particularly in my sector. We felt the pain just like everybody else does. I have an interesting viewpoint on all of this based on my family history. I had a daughter who went through high school, and she could not wait to get out of Springfield. And she went to Murfreesboro, Tennessee to go to college, quickly ended up in Nashville and finished her degree in the middle of the pandemic. And she was living her hipster dreams in Nashville. She really was. But fortunately, because of a romantic breakup and her younger sister procreating a couple of times, she decided to come back and give Springfield a try. And I think she's found it to be a pleasant surprise, because we don't do a great job of telling our story. Both things that we built, we've kind of got a cool community down here. And when I say community, I don't just mean Springfield, I mean collectively the Ozarks. We also have some wonderful assets that were here when my great-great-grandfather would have come over on a wagon from Morgan County, Tennessee to Nixon, Missouri. Clean streams that I love to float on. A beautiful countryside and just outdoors everywhere, which we like to talk about. I've also got a sister that lives in Denver, and we're all not strangers to the boom town that has been built. But I think we've got a unique skill. And that's going to be very important as we continue to try to get young people, first I would say, to stay. so that they don't run out to move. That they stay here and that they're able to thrive. I think about, we talk about housing, but I'll tell you, housing is a lot more attainable here than it is in Nashville or Denver. I also think that we've got to do a better job at recruiting. We're headed toward this demographic where I think most of us are familiar with that. So those two components are going to be very important as we continue to build out a thriving economy. If we don't do that, there's going to be winners and losers. I certainly don't want to be on the loser side of that equation. The final thing I think that I'll comment on is in my field, we're a safety net provider. About 85% of my clients are Medicaid. The burden of poverty is greater on those that are usually downtrodden in society. It's pretty important that I'm able to recruit a workforce that looks like the people that we're serving, that understand the people that they're serving, that come from poverty themselves, that understand those cultural components. And so we've got these great assets here that we can bring to bear. Strong higher educational system, a great public school system. And so it's incumbent on us to really leverage those assets and really try to create an environment that's going to be welcoming to those that might consider Springfield, but also is going to keep, it's going to keep people in the industry. So those are kind of the things that come is that question.
You had to help this community through a very difficult period with the COVID-19 pandemic, and sort of the outflow of that fed into a lot of the societal divisiveness that we experience locally, nationally. So how can an effort like this regionalism, trying to bring people together, how can it succeed in an era of divisiveness?
All right, caveat, I'm very much an optimist. So those of you that are pessimists, just bear with me. If you look back at U.S. history, it's always been we've been the benefactors of a pretty long period of peace and prosperity. But if you really go back and look, even through that period of peace and prosperity, it's just part of the American process. But I think a lot of the divisiveness really, to me, seems to be playing out at the national level. It plays out at a statewide level. But when you get to the Ozarks, I'm not calling in enough to think that it doesn't happen. I was there with you during COVID-19. But it's different because we can sit down, we're going to run into each other at the grocery store or at the brewery or at a restaurant. And we can sit down and hash out our differences. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that with people. And we come out of those conversations with, some shared understanding. So I think that that's how you push back on national divisiveness, is that we focus on being neighbors, and by bringing collective identity together, we're all Ozarkers. I think that we can bridge those gaps. Now, they're not always easy. They're not always simple. But we can call it out when it's not simple. I think that's important. And to me, that's how you handle those types of situations.
I think, obviously having a strong vision of a why that everybody can get behind will be an important part of that effort. And just come back to Erin and Dean a little bit, if you wouldn't mind. Then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. In Northwest Arkansas, philanthropy played a major role in their regionalism efforts. So I know you made some reference to this earlier, but what do you see as the role of philanthropy in our area as we try to pursue these efforts?
Think on that.
Go first.
Yeah, I know. You know, I think a couple references have been made earlier, just as far as with the private sector, but also philanthropy obviously there as well. We can be nimble and we can be responsive and we can act quickly. And you know, I think for us, we have sat and talked with this group of leaders that we've been meeting with thus far. We're hearing the problems and we're already starting to have the conversations. Okay, so then how do we move forward with it? And I think that in our region as a whole, we are really unique. I think the fact that we're sitting here right now, the CFO, they have so many organizations that they can touch with. And for us, as when you think about the philanthropy leadership side of it, we're a very collaborative group of individuals. And so I think when we talk about, you know, if it is housing that we've been focusing on, or if it is childcare, if it is even branding, how do we come together collectively? We're just being able to respond quickly.
I think some of the mechanics of it, what we lack is very fundamental. Andrew and I talked about this, we're working on community asset. So what I would say is like take any issue, and some of you, if you collectively bring enough of us together, collectively we'll know most of the assets in the community that can attack a problem. But we don't have a good way to do that. I mean, we need to use technology to basically do an inventory of what are all the community organizations that are assets. And this is something of just experiences overseas, is that you have to be very careful about criticizing your group for not getting involved in an issue when you don't know what the group's mission is. And so if you want me to attack vision, you don't come to an organization that's in housing to attack vision in healthcare and all that stuff. So back to what Erin was saying, is that the group of CEOs working through this, but we have to get a better asset map of the resources that we have. So whenever we dial to an issue, we know who are probably what I would say primary, tertiary enablers in that space. So even if you take attainable housing, for example, and that's big. I mean, it's such a big issue. You have cities involved, you have housing codes involved, you have home builders involved. You've got this huge area of philanthropy. I know there's organizations, Action, others that are replacement. So you may have a discussion about the nuts and bolts infrastructure, but how are you going to connect with the trails? So to me, I think where we haven't hit the bullseye is when we hit an issue. I don't think we have a full scope of people around the table that can focus on it. And I think that's where we're at. Is that again, who's the organization that does that? Who puts together the asset and reaches out to different groups? And again, the CEOs, what's nice about having them at the table, a lot of these individuals are on the boards. If I went through this room, I can almost guarantee you, we come up with probably very specific group names that are on all the different boards. There's threads that bind us together, invisible threads, but we're not taking advantage of that in a more systematic way. So I think that's how you get philanthropy. And I learned this a huge lesson from Bob Biden in Republic Ford. When I started in the Republic, we wanted to do a water project out to where Gunco Concrete is right now. And we needed an easement from him to do it. We needed him to annex into the city so we could get sales tax off of his paint booth and all that. And everybody told me when you go talk to Bob Biden, it's not going to annex in the city. I'm like, okay. You know, that kind of had like, oh, I'm going to get my butt handed to me by Bob Biden. And I walked in there and I told him the plan. He's like, yeah, where do I sign? Give me the paperwork. I'm like, well, I looked at him like, honestly, I didn't think it was going to be that easy. Said, well, let me tell you why it was easy. Is you have a vision, you have a plan. Because what happens is people come to a business, come to philanthropy, and they want money. Because we get that every single day. Somebody comes with a handout. But when you communicate to me that, hey, I can get water, I'm going to hook in, my fire rating is going to go down, I'm going to pay less money in insurance, You know, so it hit his business entity. But then also what I really like is a group of CEOs we're dealing with. Every single one of them has started with the community in mind. They have all said, yes, at the end of the day, there has to be some type of business interest of some sort here and there. But we're really looking at the community as a whole and what's best for the community. So I think that's, again, in fairness to philanthropy and people that are using dollars like that, we have to be very specific when we have an ask. And that we're just not doing one project out, the blue here. This stuff has to be tied together. Or we're going to spread the peanut butter a mile wide, inch deep. We're just not.
So we're going to open it up to questions. If you have a question, if you wouldn't mind, stand up, identify yourself, and if you want to direct a question to a specific panelist, feel free to do so. Otherwise, we'll see who feels best equipped to answer your question.
David?
Sure, Brian, go ahead.
Brian Fogel, Drury University. And
You remember where you work.
Amen, brother. Hey, boss. So this is a question for David. You made an important distinction, I think, of Northwest Arkansas, where communities similar in size, I know Fayetteville is the biggest, where here Springfield is the big one. And talk about the dynamics, the advantages of that, but also the challenges of that when you have one big community and smaller ones around.
So the advantages of having one is that it's probably, it's got the most momentum, that most opportunity for change. So where you can address what those needs are, it's easy to identify what the improvements or things that you can do to help stabilize or move that. Like Springfield has that forward Springfield, that's South Tim Roseberry. So having that vision, but when you're going to taking the lore concept, how do you move forward Springfield with lore together? Because to Dean's point, money follows trust. And so there's no vision. The Bible even says people wander aimlessly. And so with a vision of forward Springfield, when you go to ask for private money, it's a lot better because you know that there's visionaries that are going to steward those dollars. No disrespect, it's not towards the city, but even if it was in Republic, I'd say, you put that in government's hands, that could be a real dangerous aspect. But to me, tackling Springfield in that plan has got the most upside versus what the outside cities are doing, because I think the outside cities have jumped on board. The question you asked Lisa was the connection between how to bring Branson and Republic together. So we all need, there's connecting points that bring the other cities kind of together. You're starting to see momentum where the cities are working more with Springfield and being brought in. But to me, there was a huge advantage having the Northwest Arkansas Council in Northwest Arkansas because we were all very divided. There was 5 cities. So the council kind of herded cats in the cities, if you will. So a lot of times they would bring us into a meeting, and I wouldn't say you were told. Jason England's in here, he sees me, I'll do this because I still have a lot of friends back there, and I don't want to lose any opportunity to potentially work with someone. But what I loved about it is, like, you all need to get out of the way and let us take care of the branding of Northwest Arkansas. But you're going to invest $50,000, you need to start budgeting. So it wasn't that you were told, but they were guiding you towards the direction that you had no idea to get there. But like, we'll give you half the money for the branding, but you're gonna budget for half too. You're not just gonna come to us and ask for all of it. I think that was how the Northwest Arkansas Council helped lead that area. But I'm a firm believer that Springfield, I mean, I'm a 417 kid, Miller, 35 miles away. Springfield was the hub, Aladdin's Castle, the place where you went to buy your 3 pairs of school jeans, get your Nike shoes, so it was a destination trip, and it's like, to me, it's just that they call it the Queen City, but it was just such a huge rush to be a part of it. And so when I got to move back to Southwest Missouri, I'm like, I want to be a part of helping Springfield achieve their success through Republic and being a part of a much larger picture, utilizing the skills and tools I learned in Northwest Arkansas. But it's a much bigger elephant to address. But the way we're going at it, I think is aggressive and assertive. That's kind of how I like to roll. So I think I think Springfield's a huge catalyst. Does that answer the question?
It does.
I think that is the biggest opportunity right there, and so why I'm here, even in Springfield, doing this today. It's like, I believe in it that much.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jim Wilson. I grew up here. I left at age 18 and moved back just a few months ago. 50 years old. I lived, well, I don't know, my background has nothing to do with it, but my question to the panel has to do with transportation. Everyone has mentioned transportation. The airport, size, water, and, you know, I wish we could travel with a steamboat or something. But the highways, we have it all here. In fact, that's why Springfield exists, basically. Originally, it's kind of the crossroads for many different areas. From 1870, a little before I was born, to 1967, a major form of transportation was the railroad. Anyone who reads The Citizen knows that there's a good possibility for Amtrak to return, or not return, but for passenger service to return via Amtrak. And my question is really, what have your organizations done? Maybe more importantly, what can you do to encourage that? As has been reported, there is a proposal of a New York to Dallas line, passing St. Louis, Rolla, Lebanon, Springfield, Joplin. The one point I'd like to make is that without transportation, there's no such thing as a region. Transportation is what defines a region. And this would be one thing without seeking any help from a donor or anything else. The money is there. The question is, where will the expansion of Amtrak go? And we're actually, as has been reported, we're humbling for seconds in the possibility of passing through here. But there hasn't been that much, as far as I can identify, hasn't been that much groundswell of seeking it here. And the decision will be made in the fall. The studies have already been done. We came out very well in the studies. The report will go to Congress in the fall, and they decided where it's going. So that's my question. If I could just add like to add here, if anybody wants to encourage personally, I have here the website that you can go to and endorse the Amtrak coming through Springfield. Thanks.
So that's a great question. The one organization, welcome back to the Ozarks. The one organization that is the most qualified right on the direction of where we're going with Amtrak and rail is the Ozarks Transportation Organization. It's a metropolitan planning organization where dollars and funding flows for transportation. I know they take care of like the buses with CU and things of those nature. That would be a great resource as to where, but as for what the status of that is, I'm more familiar with the transportation, because to your point, transportation means economic development. So, I mean, I was in Kansas City 2 days ago talking about the railway going from Canada to Mexico. So, again, when I think about regionalism or the state, I'm not just thinking about our own. It's like, what can we do? So, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know what the organization or who the organization necessarily, other than the OTO, would be that's been leading those efforts, or what legislated. Ryan, I don't know if you know anybody that's working on rail, or I hate to put you on the spot.
No, that's
but
fine. Yeah, I've had several conversations with folks about it. It's not terribly active yet, but there were a lot of projects in the pipeline that last year was kind of like getting to completion on. So I think it's back in line. There's people talking about it, but I know, kind of our chief appropriators have not been actively talking about it as an urgent need or something that's going to happen.
I think one thing I can help with this is that discussion's in the mix, back to what they're talking about. But in transportation, and back to the speakers, what we're doing already, a lot of people probably don't know that. All these organizations are talking. So Ozark Transportation, Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce, SIMCOG, Jason, we have chamber staff and SIMCOG participating. City Utilities is a regional provider. That's on, what I would say, that's on the radar screen. That's probably not a priority, where I-44 is a priority. Right. So that has definitely been discussed. But where it starts to stack up, and we're looking at widening James River Freeway or getting I-44. And so there's that advocacy part. So Laura's not actively doing anything in that space, but a role for Laura is to advocate. And that's what a lot of organizations are doing. So don't know where that ranks. It's in the discussion, and each organization is going to have a different role from advocacy to actually leading the effort. The state transportation improvement plan is STIP. And so again, you have at least a half a dozen organizations, Jason, that I'm probably leaving a few out, but Jason represents an economic development, the EDA district, 10-county district. And so he's tied into that. Ozarks Transportation Organization and others. So again, it's been discussed. We just don't know exactly where it would rank on the current stick.
Thanks. Fritz?
Okay, thank you. My name is Fritz Jacoby. Like you, sir, I used to live here 25 years ago, and then my job took me around the country. And about 10 years ago, I chose to retire back here in the Ozarks because I think this is just a fantastic place to live. A comment, not so much a question. About 20 years ago, I was fortunate to participate in a regionalism study in Northern Illinois. And the concept of thinking was the same. Instead of being individuals, what greater good could we do as if we acted together as a region? That particular group chose to function and look at transportation and education as the two main study areas and the focus areas. And after a couple of years, put together a plan and presented it in 2006. Unfortunately, 2 years later, this thing called 2008 happened, and everything came to a crashing end. And so there's my challenge. Some of those things were completed, some of those weren't. The group disbanded. And so my challenge to you is don't let yourself be another group. Don't let yourself be another study. As you move forward and you find projects and things that you want to move forward with, talk about implementation and accountability. And if this particular group isn't going to take the reins, can you pass it off to another partnership organization that maybe has the resources and the time to do that? Because I'm all for you. I wish you good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll just chime in real quick. Thank you for saying that. And that actually was a large part of the conversation during the first meeting that we had with great CEOs. It's just we need to hone in on one thing. Let's pick one topic to really focus on and make sure that we accomplish it and just blow it out of the park ideally. Even if it takes 10 to 15 years to truly achieve whatever that item might be, take your time and do it well. And don't get too distracted. We talked about how Laura can be the leader maybe for one topic. We can be partners for other issues, but to truly lead just one thing at a time.
That's good. Something I want to add to is perspective, because some of you have been around longer, so I love it that some of you were here and you have to come back. My introduction to Springfield was in 1986 when I came down here for school. And the best way to make somebody sticky is your spouse. I've been here ever since. But the reason I came down to Missouri State at the time was it just kind of felt like a home. But here's your perspective, and back to Eric Carlson was here in history. When I was a student in the 80s, where we're sitting right now is a black hole. As a student at Southwest Missouri State University, you could not have entitled, there was no vibe for downtown Springfield. And so what we tend to forget is the $1 billion+ in public and private capital that's invested in this downtown. And that story is in Branson as well. Watch Branson mature, and back to the Urshins and Christmas, and who would have thought that lights could bring that much economic development, but it has. And so back to those speakers, John, we have a lot going on. First, we've done a lot of work over decades that's gotten us to this point. And bringing that perspective, I think, is beneficial, because back to being an optimist. I'm an optimist. But some people may come in here and say, "Oh, we don't have this, we don't have that." The number one frustration I have is when somebody says, "Well, we don't have the money to do what Northwest Arkansas has done." That is a bunch of hooey. Okay, I can tell you that just unequivocally. If we have the right plan in place, people are gonna rally around it, and they're gonna put the money where it needs to be. We can be a head and shoulders above what Northwest are.
Matt Stoeffler. So Northwest Arkansas, Bentonville, you mentioned there were 3 companies that really came together to make that happen. And I love Bentonville, but when I was there, I feel like I'm walking through a Walmart commercial. Notably, this panel is not 3 companies that have come together, but I was curious about that tension between private and public money, and what impact that might have on our region. Sort of going back to that vibe, that feel of it, because it's nice, but it does feel I feel like there's some messaging there, and so, I feel like you alluded to this tension earlier though as well, given that example of where the public groups have been cut out of the process. That public sector, well, things like that, it can make things take a lot longer, where companies can move faster, there might be momentum gathering, we don't want to lose an opportunity. So just curious sort of for the group, and maybe this is more in Dean or Erin, like no patches involved with so many different things, you might have already picked up on some of this. What is that vision in terms of public-private, the impact that might have on that community vibe? Because right now I feel like, well, it feels like a community thing. And I think I worry a little bit about, oh, well, we got to get money in, and then what's that going to do for the branding out there?
So it was interesting. I can't remember if he calls it Brett Ethel, his neighbor. So when I was talking to him, he brought up, he's like, hey, this has an opportunity. Brett, what is it? Maple. Okay. And that's his example. I would say strongly the straw person is that. Back to your point is, lore can do a lot of great things, but it can't be the latest organization that carves people out of the process, and that you have to be part of it's not even into what's going on here. I think that's what we've done again is, yes, there's an opportunity to have the CEOs at the table, these things pivot, but you got to have the public sector, private sector, the philanthropy. And I'll give you one example of where I see the benefit of this is, right now, there's probably federal money out there that might need a match to do something in the community. I got a feeling that's the case. Yeah. There's typically something out there that there's monies out there from other philanthropy organizations, or the city could be designing a public works project, and instead of being a bunch of concrete and steel, if we wanted to add another $100,000, we could make it a little bit more placement. They're not being critical engineers, God bless them. They'll build it, they'll build it strong, it'll last for 50, 60 years, but I don't want it to look like a big concrete bunker. So there's probably money out there to help with beautification of just a public works project. I think that's a good example of the essence of, hey, there's people out there that may be able to match that and take it to a different level, but I don't think we've tapped into it. So I think it can help the image of our home and things like that. But I think to your point, there's going to be some tension, but I think there's some very common threads that we're seeing through Port SGF. If we go to other communities, that, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much out there right now that could be done. I don't think there's a lot of competing interests where we're going to say, yeah, you know what, we got more help than we need. It's just how we go about it and making sure that we don't try to exclude people. It really has to be true.
You could elaborate. I think that's key.
And again, Branson's kind of the odd man out, but it's some good examples. MODA is a great example, right? And the widening of 65 and the High Road and all the things that happen with MODA. But we also, to your point about grants, I'm just learning of the joys of being friends with SimCog. Where's the SimCog guy? They are an amazing group of getting out there and go get those grants. And we are completing a $13 million wall, 9-foot wall around the 100-year-old wastewater treatment plant that has been updated and updated and updated. It's on the banks of Lake Taneycomo, right? And because of SimCog's help, we are able to pretty soon, open up the whole, that it will be a completed project. Also, the roads to Silver Dollar, those were public-private with MoDOT, the improvements, public-private. We have just got $6.2 million in this money floating out there that the governor of the state of Missouri went ahead and signed. That is for the beautification project of what we have, public-private, a CID of 76. Beautification of 76. Bury the lines and make the sidewalks ADA. We also have a CID in historic downtown Branson, same kind of thing. Let's make it ADA friendly. Let's make sure that we have beautification. And there is an awful lot of grant money if you couple up there and get the right players on the field.
Okay, time for one more question from, yeah.
Brandon Johnson from Springfield City Council. I have a set of questions that are kind of two sides of the same coin. The first is recognizing that even more is going to have a limited set of resources that are available. So how are we going to work to make sure that you're staying aligned with the vision that's been identified by the public sector? So we are all working in the same direction, but also what opportunities do you see to create a feedback loop so that the vision set by the public sector is responsive and adaptable? Because I don't think it should be a foregone conclusion that government can't be responsive and change to meet the needs of our
Thank you. It's a great question. So I'll give you an example. January of this year's City Council accepted the housing study. And if you look at the housing study of Springfield, if you look at the housing study for efforts of Branson and Hollister, and probably 7 different efforts, there's spreads in those efforts that are very consistent with each other, but there's no way binding those together. So I think that's some low-hanging fruit. I don't know ultimately if that could just, if the CEOs of Lord can land on that, but that's one example is that before Lord does anything, there has to be research into what's already there and why. And tap into that because I expect friction points, but then there's also conversations of, well, here's a housing study, but what if this or what if that? So I think there's already efforts that we're doing. It's just combining those efforts, bringing them together, and having a conversation. And I would look at it this way. So if it is attainable housing, you need to bring all the subject matter experts together to attainable housing. And that's also bringing in the cities. At some point in there's having the subject matter experts in the city as well. But you have home builders, you have a contractors association, dot. So I think that's the feedback loop is if it is attainable housing, you've got to reflect what is already being done in space. You got to look for where it's overlapping, and you got to look for friction points and identify that early on in those discussions. But then when you decide to attack it, you got to get everybody together and work through those. So on the housing, the interesting thing on the housing stuff, they're all, if you look at the one in Springfield, you can go to different communities, it's nationwide. There's a lot of similarities. So I think that one's an easier one. But again, creating that feedback loop, like what you're talking about, is once you find out from the CEOs what their friction points are, and if they're going to decide on that, you got to look at what's being done and embed that. And that's the conversation with the city council and members of the public organization. I mean, you don't want to duplicate effort, you don't want to merge what's already being done. It's going to be consistent with all the same direction.
I would just add real quickly that we were talking with Northwest Arkansas Council, that's something that they mentioned is, yes, even though it's the private sector led, that when you pick your topic, you have to bring in all of the experts. And I hope that we have not insinuated that the public sector is not going to be involved by any means. Okay, good. Yeah, as he said, you have to bring all the experts to the table, whether they are a member or not. That's how you would really, achieve whatever the goals.
So I'll elaborate on that as well. So how Northwest Arkansas, in my capacity as a city there, the council would bring, there was always going to be collaborations. There was like an annual meeting, but you didn't go to all the monthly meetings. So you were at the table, they knew your master plans, they knew what you were working on. It was more about the larger topics that affected the whole region versus like individual what happens in your individual communities, like what happened in Springfield versus Republic. Very unique and different situations that are dealt with on a daily basis. They didn't really delve into the weeds of that, even into Forward Springfield, or SGF. It was more like the big picture items. This is what we're working on, and we don't want to get outside of you in any way. We don't want to force it upon you. But to your point, kind of tying those two together, of the public-private side, I remember the branding that they were going through in Northwest Arkansas. So when you go to Northwest Arkansas, you'll see wayfinding signage everywhere, from Gentry, Arkansas, Silent Springs, to Gravette, Fayetteville. It's all the same. That, if you give that to the local communities to design, I mean, we all got our own flags, and those take what, 6 months? And but what they did is the council worked together to put the funding with the Walmart, the foundation, and they created a design and brought it to the cities with a funding plan. So they didn't just come with a design that came with, hey, we want to help pay for half of it. They don't really step on top of it. It's just how they work hand in hand on issues of like, I'm not worried about wayfinding signage. But the council was on branding and keeping and retaining employees. Like, how do we keep our community cool? We're city ain't like that all the time, and definitely not together on it. So that's how they kind of blend those two together.
Kind of work our way back through the panel here, starting to play with just a final question for all of you. Go back to Lisa after Clay and end up coming back, finishing with Erin. So what, from this conversation and the whole idea of working better together to improve the quality of life, from your point of view, what would success look like?
Well, we've got to quit getting out of, or we've got to get out of our own way. And we've got a habit of sometimes quashing progress because we make it too complicated. So I think that finding those easily attainable wins and seizing on those and driving forward in 5 years, I think that's a success for me.
Lisa, from your perspective, what was success?
Well, mine's kind of a soft feel good here. I have to say, I think it's in all of our best interests to ensure, back to your question, that we are doing our part to pass the organizations, the vision, the know-how, the work ethic that it takes to keep these things on the rails or get them on the rails in the first place. I know that that's what Peter Herschel wanted for me, and I know that my quest in life now is to ensure that I pass it on. Just like you, Mr. Carlson, one-time mayor. I mean, there are people you have mentored. I think it's so important that success looks at the end of it all, that we have done our greatest at passing on the vision and the thinking and the know-how on how to do things.
Success for me is what I say from a municipal perspective. There's a lot of things that go on in cities every single day that we have to tackle on a daily basis. There are issues that affect our cities that we cannot get to. And to me, having someone that's got their eye on that ball, that does not require the process of government in it because it takes critical thinking. And sometimes you got to be discreet about that. So to me, looking at a group that's out there looking at it, they're also kind of guiding it. I know it'll be successful. So for me, whenever we're seeing one project done, like Clay said, it's not like we're all at battle with one another, like trying to argue those points. I think that we can all come around that one issue. The success getting around one of it and building just a little momentum on a project, because money follows trust. If we get one done, then money will continue to follow and momentum will continue to follow. I believe that to me is what's going to drive us forward. That's the part. Good. Okay. If ever didn't get hurt, that's success.
Actually, I'm going to tie into to the theme of lore. That's writing our story for the future. And I think that's the branding genius of lore is that we all have a story. It's the Ozarks. And I think it's aligning the resources to write the story that we've enjoyed, that we fell in love with, to ensure that it's there for generations to come.
Pretty much stole mine.
That's the problem of being last.
Problem, yeah. I mentioned just future generations. I want my children to live here, and I want them, and I want all of you to love where you live. And I think that at the end of the day, that's the big goal. And if we can just help more families, more community members just truly feel invested in the community and love where they live, that's the big one for me.
Great, let's hear it for our panel. Thank you to all. Appreciate your time and your thought, the thought you put into things beforehand. So we also want to thank Winter Kenny and Matt Lemon and Eric Scott and the full CFO team for their work here today. I do want to recognize also my team from the Daily Citizen that has been involved in putting this together. John Tate, Shannon Kay, and Ransberger, our managing editor, is here, and of course Ryan Collins, our business reporter, who's been taking copious notes, and he'll be writing up a story afterward about this. And our founder, Tom Carlson, who's been referenced a couple of times. Appreciate Tom being here today as well. You know, at the Daily Citizen, we're proud to be part of the community, proud to partner with the CFO and with all of you here in the room to try to make sure that our community is a better place for everyone to live and to grow and to thrive and to work and play. And so I hope you'll take time to join us for a little play afterward. If you have time, we're going to gather up at Vantage. As John mentioned, there might be some 2-for-1 coupons available if you are so inclined. But we'd love to have you join us for furthering this conversation. And thank you all for taking the time to be here today for this great discussion. So thank you.